9th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyAudiomedia.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
And it is hour 2 of the Friday edition. Let's get you caught up. The judge who presided over a civil business fraud trial against Donald Trump today ordered Trump, his sons, and his business associates and his company to pay over $350 million in damages and temporarily limited their ability to do business in New York. Judge Arthur Engoron ordered the former president and the Trump organization to pay over $354 million in damages and barred Trump from serving as an officer or director of any New York corporation for a period of 3 years. He also continued the appointment of an independent monitor and ordered the installation of an independent director of compliance for the company. President Joe Biden expressed shock and outrage at the death of Alexei Navalny, blaming Vladimir Putin for the Russian opposition leader's passing in a Siberian prison today, and saying the incident showed the importance of funding for Ukraine. Biden said, "Make no mistake, Putin is responsible for Navalny's death." He said the U.S. did not know exactly what had happened to Navalny, but that there is no doubt that his death was the consequence of something that Putin and his thugs did. 2 juveniles have been charged in connection with a shooting at the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl parade that left 1 person dead and 22 others injured, according to authorities today. The juveniles who were taken into custody after the parade were charged yesterday and are being held at a juvenile detention center on gun-related and resisting arrest charges. The 16th Judicial Circuit Court of Missouri, Jackson County Family Court Division said in a statement. The shooting happened Wednesday afternoon in downtown Kansas City, Missouri, next to Union Station, where the parade had ended and the rally was held. Authorities said they believe a dispute among several people ended in gunfire and said there was no evidence of violent extremism or terrorism. Popular radio DJ, Lisa Lopez Galvin, was killed. President Joe Biden's campaign and abortion rights advocates ripped into former President Donald Trump on abortion today following a report that he has given private signals in favor of a national ban on abortions after 16 weeks of pregnancy that would include exceptions in cases of rape, incest, and when the woman's life is in danger. During his presidential campaign, Trump has steered clear of taking a public position on a prospective national ban, which would require congressional approval. But the New York Times reported today that he has indicated behind closed doors that he likes the idea of prohibiting abortion after 16 weeks in most cases. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Wednesday said he didn't get complete satisfaction from last week's interview with Tucker Carlson because the right-wing U.S. pundit failed to take him to task. During the over 2-hour-long Carlson interview, Putin delivered a 20-plus minute soliloquy about Russian history and mocked Carlson over his failed attempt to join the CIA. Michigan Republicans Wednesday officially ousted State Party Chair Christina Caramo, ending a weeks-long feud that began with a January 6th vote to remove her from her post over insufficient fundraising and party infighting. Caramo, who is an election denier previously backed by Donald Trump, began serving as party chair last year after losing her bid to become Secretary of State in 2022. Her far-right rhetoric as leader of the state party alienated donors and, along with debt issues, led some of her allies to join the push to remove her from her post. She also refused to accept the January vote from Michigan Republicans that did remove her as chair and claimed the meeting was illegitimate, plunging her own party into further chaos. Her replacement, former Michigan Rep Pete Hoekstra, did actually receive an endorsement from Trump after all that. Senator Joe Manchin said today that he will not mount a third-party presidential bid to relief of Democrats who spent months worrying about his refusal to shut down the possibility of challenging President Joe Biden. Manchin famously helped cut down Democrats' agenda during Biden's first 2 years as president, arguing his party was trying to start permanent new programs without sufficient funding for them. He also refused to change the filibuster. When we come forward, we're going to have a conversation about diversity and about some black CEOs who are speaking up about why diversity is important. They wrote a letter to Fortune 500 CEOs telling them why diversity is important. And we have 3 of those CEOs joining the show today, 3 black, powerful, extraordinary CEOs. And we'll talk to them when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
Climate is king.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that caring for the community means caring about the climate. You might have heard that we announced a pretty bold 12-month, $2 million campaign to do 4 things. Increase climate literacy, turn up the volume on communities of color in the climate conversation, connect everyday people with the resources they need to survive and thrive, and highlight frontline climate justice crusaders of color throughout this year. KBLA Talk 1580 will be bringing you insightful interviews on all of our shows to help raise your climate IQ. Each quarter this year, we will also be hosting free climate events in various communities throughout the city with food, fun, and forward-thinking conversations. Thanks to partners like LADWP, Metro, Caltrans, the Sierra Club, the California Community Foundation, the California Endowment, AQMD, MWD, and more. You'll also be hearing more about a couple of national town halls broadcasting live from Los Angeles, to which you will be invited. And we'll be rolling out a robust social media campaign on all our platforms, as well as an outdoor media campaign, all designed to educate, enlighten, and empower you in our fight for climate justice.
We want cleaner air.
Caring about the community means caring about the climate. At KBLA Talk 1580, we believe that we really can change the world if we care enough.
With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, banking with Capital One is the easiest decision in the history of decisions. Even easier than choosing Charles Barkley in a pickup game.
We'll take Barkley.
Ha! First pick. Sorry, kids.
Yep, even easier than that. With no fees or minimums and no overdraft fees, is it even a decision?
Okay, here's the plan. Pass me the ball every time.
This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. See CapitalOne.com/bank for details. Capital One NA, member FDIC.
Some people just know the best places to eat around town. Those are the people who know to choose Allstate. They know exactly where to go to get exactly what you're wanting. They know where to find the spiciest hot pot, the gooeyest brownies, and the tenderest, most flavorful portobello steak. Those people also know that safe drivers save 40% with Allstate.
Saving 40% is based on the national average premium savings for all state auto customers with a clean driving record versus those without. Savings vary by state and vary based on how you buy, subject to terms, conditions, and availability. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, Northbrook, Illinois.
Meet Cheryl.
Hey.
She's on vacation and lost in the moment. Unfortunately, so is her Chase debit card.
It's gotta be somewhere.
Maybe she lost it at salsa night.
These skirts should have pockets.
Or maybe she lost it at Pilates.
3 and 2 and...
But she's not worried. With the Chase mobile app, she can lock her card till it turns up. Tools that help protect. One bank that puts you in control. Visit chase.com/checking. Chase, make more of what's yours.
Chase mobile app is available for select mobile devices. Message and data rates may apply. JP Morgan Chase Bank and a member FDIC.
There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
We are back on the Friday edition of Areva Martin in real time, and appreciate you joining us, whether you are listening on 1580 AM here in Los Angeles or on the free KBLA app, or you are listening to and watching us on YouTube. You can watch us on YouTube, and if you miss any portion of the show, you can go back and watch us later on YouTube. You can also check us out on the podcast, on demand, wherever you get your podcasts. So, Fortune 500 CEOs received a letter from a conglomerate of black CEOs, stating the importance of diversity in their corporations. DEI has been under very fervent attack in recent months, and it is the opposite of what we saw happening after the murder of George Floyd during the pandemic. And I just want to read a snippet of this letter that these CEOs sent to Fortune 500 CEOs. Dear Fortune 500 CEO, as the leader of a Fortune 500 company in the United States, you know that investments in diversity initiatives, including supplier diversity programs, contribute to the performance and growth of companies, advance economic growth, and improve productivity. Unfortunately, business decisions intended to capture the value from diversity initiatives have been politicized by a vocal minority of ideologically motivated voices who ignore both facts and the law. Opponents are relying on litigation to advance an unpopular anti-growth and anti-competitive agenda to undermine your leadership, the will of the vast majority of the population, and the growth and competitiveness of the U.S. economy. We believe it is imperative that CEOs and other company leaders are able to make strategic decisions for their companies without threats of frivolous lawsuits and political pressure, and we will be here with support every step of the way. Joining us now are two of the CEOs who penned that letter, and we are joined by them now. We're joined by Angela Dingle, President and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy, and Eboni Wimbush, President and CEO of the Airport Minority Advisory Council. Angela, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you today.
Really great to have you. And Eboni, how are you today?
Fantastic. Good evening, and thanks again for having us for this really important conversation.
Super duper important conversation. How did you all come together to write this letter? Was it you guys already knew each other, or how did this letter come together? I'll let either of you take that one.
Angela, do you want to start?
I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
We'll go with Angela. Yeah, we'll go with Angela. Go ahead.
In the work that we do within our respective organizations, we see the impact of the lawsuits and the cases that have come about. They just kind of risen to the top, and I think collectively and individually, we found a need to voice our support for what we saw happening there.
Did Eboni, did you all already know each other? There's 12 of you who came together to write this letter, and was it something that one of you wrote and then passed it around, and you all kind of gave your input and added things and took things out? How did this letter like literally come together?
That's a great question. I'll start with the first part of your question. I think, in the work that we all do in our associations and our nonprofits, we are staunch supporters for our constituency, the constituency that is a part of the fabric of this country. And so we all are very respectful and understand the deep work that it takes within our organizations. And so I wouldn't say that we all know each other personally, but we understand the impact that each of us is making, and we understand the impact of coming together and convening coalitions to stand and force behind what we know is, as you said, the opposite of American, the American way, opposite of competition, opposite of a lot of things that we know. And so the letter was a collective of expressions based on all of our experience, all of what we hear from the voice of our members and our constituency, and really just pinned together to demonstrate not just our support, but facts, right? Facts behind why we want CEOs to stay the course.
Okay, you said you've been hearing from members in your constituency. What have you been hearing from them?
So my organization is called Airport Minority Advisory Council, AMAC. We are the only national nonprofit that advocates for women and minorities in airport contracting and employment. What we are hearing, not just from those members, because our members are a collective of airports, of corporations and women and minority-owned companies is that in order to continue to spark innovation, in order to drive competitiveness, in order to fill this labor shortage that continues to happen, we need everybody participating in this collective work and building the infrastructure of this of this country. And so my airport members are saying we've seen the benefit of reaching into a diverse pool of employees. The cities are saying, you know, we need these employers who typically hire, diverse employers typically hire within their communities. We need them to continue to hire within those communities to spark jobs, right, which is driving revenue. I'll give you a piece of data. At LAX, the last report they generated, they have more than, LAX generates more than 600,000 jobs, accounting for $37.3 billion in labor income and more than $26 billion in economic output. This activity has added $6.2 billion to local and state revenue and $8.7 billion in federal taxes. So when you look at the jobs and you look at the impact that it has to the local economy, what they're saying is in order to modernize airports, for example, and you know all of the capital improvement work that's happening at LAX, we need everyone to participate. And so so there is a lot of, you know, though there's this backlash against diversity, equity, and inclusion, and these terms are being weaponized, business owners understand the value of diverse workforce. They understand the value to the bottom line of diverse employees building the infrastructure of this country.
Yeah, and you being the president and CEO of the Airport Minority Advisory Council reminds me of this article I read recently that talked about the shortage of air traffic controllers and how that is impacting flight safety for the entire country because they're overworked and they're often not as well rested as they should be, and how there have been so many close calls where planes are landing in too close of a proximity to when another plane is taking off, and all that stuff is very specific. And this is not the conversation we're having today. You just reminded me of that and saying that we all need to participate. I mean, that's true, and I just wanted to bring that up because it's so fascinating that there are these jobs available, and there are people who are against diversity, and you all have argued that diversity helps us all. So Angela, I wanna go back to you on this one. There was a Morning Consult poll, and Morning Consult, a very reputable poller. They're responsible for some of the most respected political polls, and that poll revealed that that it was a poll of over 300 leading C-suite executives. So C-suite meaning the top brass of the company, CEO, CFO, and so forth, of varying political views. And that poll showed that 80% of C-suite leaders of all political affiliations recognize diversity as a valuable tool for business, and they support diverse initiatives. 75% of self-described conservative executives, 77% of moderate executives, and 89% of liberal executives all responded that diverse initiatives result in positive performance and growth. So did this poll, Angela, have anything to do with you all writing that letter to Fortune 500 CEOs?
I mean, certainly it was a motivating factor. So our organization, Women Impacting Public Policy, we advocate for women business owners across the country, representing about 14 million women business owners. And our business owners do business in both the public and the private sector. And the attacks against DEI affect those businesses in a number of different ways. And so when you hear from, when our members are out engaging in the community and trying to grow and expand their businesses and speaking with organizations about potential contracting opportunities with them or growth opportunities with them, these threats become widely known. There were a number of incidents that happened both in the public sector as well as in the private sector with respect to these threats. So the motivating factor behind the data is that the empirical data is telling us that CEOs believe that DEI initiatives are really important for their bottom line, and they need to hear the support of organizations like us to know that we hear them, we see that, we understand that this is an important business imperative for them. My colleague just indicated the fact that we know this is a strong driver of performance. There is data that's been around for years, long before the pandemic, long before any of these attacks started, to show that when you have a diverse workforce, when you have a diverse supply chain, that it does things like attract talent, it can unleash innovation and increase competitiveness. And I think the data just speaks for itself. And we just wanted to put our support behind that, just to let CEOs know, to remind them that they've got the support of the American public. There's data that supports it's good for business and good for the economy, and we wanted to let them know that we stand with them.
With diversity being that beneficial to businesses, why is it, Angela, under such attack? What is it that is it just as simple as people are not wanting to see as many non-white people in their workplace, or is it an overall feeling among a certain sector of the right, feeling like they're being replaced, and their fear about white replacement theory and all that? Is as simple as that is why diversity is under attack right now?
Yeah, I mean, we just believe that it's these attacks are politically motivated, and they don't reflect what the data is telling us about the sentiments of consumers and the leaders in these Fortune 500 companies across the country. We just know that the data is telling us something different, right? The facts speak for themselves. The empirical data analysis reveals how companies that champion diversity and inclusion outperform their peers who don't. So what you're hearing, what we're seeing in these lawsuits, and what you're hearing in the media just don't reflect what the data is telling us. It doesn't even reflect what we're hearing from the CEOs themselves. You said it yourself, right? The business leaders across the board see diversity initiatives as very important to their business strategies, and there's an expectation that that will continue to be important to their business strategies in the coming years. And it doesn't matter what their political affiliation has been. Self-described conservative executives agree that DEI is good for business. Moderates agree that DEI is good for business, and liberals all agree. So we really just think that this is politically motivated. These lawsuits are politically motivated.
So
I want to lean into
yeah,
a point that was made because I think this is really critical. The data around competitiveness, around performance was done a long time ago. The data that's done now, the surveys speak for what's happening now. When you look at and you poll millennials, right, and their buying patterns, what they feel is valuable, they even talk about 90% of millennials in terms of their purchasing behavior. They talk about the importance of authenticity in the brand. They talk about buying based on companies who reflect their social issues and the positions that they stand in there. And so it's just not today. This data pointed to that before, and where the future is going points to it's going to be more important because people put their money where they find value in an organization, where they see alignment with their own values.
Yeah. I mean, it's just, why do you think that, well, I'm going to get you out of here on this question. I could really talk to you guys for like this entire hour. Why do you think that more CEOs, and especially white CEOs, are not speaking up and talking about this importance that you are both so effectively articulating here today, Eboni?
Well, I mean, I think I think if you look at the collective of the CEOs that signed this, we represent many, backgrounds and ethnicities. I do think there are leaders, both black and white, and Asian, Latino, who are coming out in support of what is the right thing and the right bottom line thing. I think today where we are, remember, we are heading into a really political season with elections coming up, and changes happen often in leadership. And so sometimes people are discouraged from putting themselves out and being vocal. But when there are collectives as this, coalitions that form to say that it's not just, again, the right thing to do, but let's stand on data, let's stand on facts, we give people more encouragement to do it. About maybe 2 weeks ago, Jamie Dimon from J.P. Morgan Chase, he came out and said, listen, he's as unwoke. He used those words. He's a blue-blooded capitalist. And he said that, it is no way that his organization will go backwards in this. And so you do have CEOs coming out in support of diversity because it does improve the bottom line.
Yeah, but he did really tiptoe around it. He didn't talk about it in the way you guys are talking about it. We're out of time for this half hour. It's really fascinating what you two are a part of. Angela Dingle, President and CEO of Women Impacting Public Policy, and Eboni Wimbush, President and CEO of Airport Minority Advisory Council. Thank you both so much, and hope to hear from you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When we come forward, we're going to talk to another Black CEO. His name is Alfonso David. He's the President and CEO of the Global Black Economic Forum, to continue this conversation about this letter that was written to the Fortune 500 CEOs after this news, traffic, and sports update right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Areva time is the right time. More of Areva Martin in real time when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Former President Obama is weighing in on former President Trump's recent controversial NATO remarks. In a post on X Wednesday, formerly known as Twitter, Obama added to a post from President Biden saying President Biden is absolutely right. The last thing we need right now is a world that is more chaotic and less secure, where dictators feel emboldened and our allies wonder if they can count on us. Let's keep moving forward. Paramount's Bob Marley biopic is already setting records. Bob Marley, One Love brought in $14 million Wednesday, breaking the record for biggest midweek Valentine's Day opening. The film, starring Kinsley Benadir, is projected to earn $30 million in its first 6 days through the President's Day holiday. Meanwhile, Sony's Spielberg's film Madam Web took in just over $6 million in its first day in theaters Wednesday. The superhero movie is projected to rank in $20 million over its first 6 days. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wynn on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network, and BINnews.com.
In Palmdale on the 14th South before 10th Street, that's a crash taking up the left lane and traffic's deadlocked from Avenue K. And Gorman 5 northbound before the 138 South, that's a car fire moved to the right shoulder. The vehicle is fully engulfed in flames and the fire department is en route. Out in Orange County, Brea 57 north after Tonner Canyon Road, that's a stall on the right shoulder with traffic slow from Imperial Highway. And then Anaheim 91 west before the 57, that's a crash in the 2 middle lanes and traffic slow from Imperial Highway there.
Some people just know the best rate for you is a rate based on you with Allstate, not one based on anyone else. So if you drive safely, you could save money. Good to know. Visit allstate.com or call for a quote today.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
One of the highlights of NBA All-Star Weekend is the NBA HBCU Classic on Saturday. Virginia Union will face Winston-Salem State in a showcase for HBCU players during a high-profile weekend. The game tips off Saturday morning at 11. You can watch the game live on TNT, ESPN2, and NBA TV. Today's Black History Month sports moment: on October 24th, 1992, Cito Gaston became the first African-American manager in Major League Baseball history to lead his team to a World Series championship. Gaston led the Toronto Blue Jays over the Atlanta Braves, winning the series 4-2. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA. Join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds, 60 minutes of talk with some flavor. You can join the conversation at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do Black history every single day. In fact, as the only Black talk radio station west of the Mississippi, we are Black history. Our annual Black History Month luncheon is fast approaching, and we want to be sure to give you ample time to get your company, organization, church, or group to join us at this year's celebration on the last day of the month, Thursday, February 29th at noon. Last year, we honored iconic local Black media personalities, including Pat Harvey, Jim Hill, Mark Brown, Beverly White, Sandy Banks, and Pat Prescott, and raised $20,000 in scholarships. This year, we're honoring Black Hollywood creatives who have used their artistic genius as climate justice champions. At this year's luncheon, we will be showcasing and sharing their inspiring work on our big screen. Plus, a scrumptious meal, live music, great company, and lots of fun with your favorite KBLA Talk 1580 hosts. So contact us today at info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. That's info@smileyaudio.com or call 323-290-4690. We hope to see you Thursday, February 29th as we close out Black History Month. At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black.
It's time to represent your community in the 2024 presidential primary election. When you vote, you get to decide what is best for you, your neighborhood, and your family. Use your power. Make a plan to vote today. Visit plan.lavote.gov. That's plan.lavote.gov to get everything you need to vote in the March 5th presidential primary election. Brought to you by the Los Angeles County Registrar.
This is KBLA Talk 1580, home of the 2024 Climate Justice Campaign.
Eggs are a staple in our diets, and there's only one egg with more delicious farm-fresh taste plus superior nutrition. Eggland's Best. With more vitamins, including 6 times more vitamin D and 10 times more vitamin E, plus 25% less saturated fat than ordinary eggs. Available in so many delicious varieties: classic, cage-free, and organic. Eggland's Best. Better taste, better nutrition, better eggs.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio. That's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
It is the Friday edition of Areva Martin Real Time. Avi Bernard here with you every Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific, and we are continuing the conversation about 12 CEOs of diverse organizations who signed an open letter to CEOs, to Fortune 500 CEOs, to remind them that diversity is great for American businesses. We're joined now by Alfonso David. He is the president and CEO of Global Black Economic Forum. Alfonso, welcome. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm good.
Good. I wanted to bring you into the conversation here. We were talking to your colleagues, Eboni Wimbush and Angela Dingle, and I wanted to get your take on why you all decided to send and sign this open letter to the CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Well, I think it's important for us to take a step back whenever we talk about policy, that policy is really focused on facts and not fear. Business leaders, of course, are focused on the bottom line. They're focused on making sure that they're advancing the interests of their companies. And in an environment that's becoming increasingly polarized by a very, very small minority, we wanted to make sure that we remind business leaders that diversity and diversity-related initiatives benefit the bottom line. yes, it's a good thing to do to make sure that you have a diverse workforce, to make sure that you have a diverse supply diversity structure. But it is very, very clear that when you have diverse initiatives within your company, you do better as a company. The companies of the future have diverse workforces. The companies of the future have diverse supply diversity programs. And we wanted to make sure that we communicate that very clearly to CEOs, because there is a lot of misinformation and fear about diversity, equity, and initiative and inclusion initiatives. And we wanted to take a step back and make sure that they are focused on the facts. And the letter outlines why they should be focused on the facts.
Have you received any response or at least acknowledgement of receipt from any of these Fortune 500 CEOs?
Yes. I've spoken with a number of CEOs who have acknowledged receiving the letter. I've also spoken with senior executives at Fortune 500 companies who indicated to us that they appreciated us issuing this public letter. Because again, I think as we think about the context that we're operating in, companies are receiving letters from Republican attorneys generals telling them that they have to end their diversity initiatives. They're receiving threatening letters from right-wing advocates saying that D&I is no longer lawful. So when we issue a letter, not only reminding them that diversity, inclusion, and equity and inclusion is beneficial to their businesses, but also reminding them that it's lawful, that's incredibly helpful because it reminds them of what the facts are as opposed to focusing on the fear.
How are you mentioned that's really it's really startling that CEOs are receiving threatening letters from Republican lawmakers. How are they responding to those letters? How are they? I know that you said that you're writing this letter in part so they can feel reassurance and feel that you guys support them. But before they receive this letter and they're getting all of these threats and basically telling them what to do and telling them that to stop being so diverse. How are they responding to those threats?
Look, I think I often say that companies in this current environment fall into three categories. The first category are companies that are reassessing their commitment to diversity. They are pausing. We're not quite sure how they're going to proceed. They're taking a reevaluation or another look at diversity. The second are those that are retreating. Companies that were never really committed to diversity in the first place and are using this as a shield to no longer support diversity. And then I think the majority of companies that we're talking to are reaffirming their commitments to diversity. Reaffirming their commitments because, again, often diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives are painted through a lens of, well, we think is a good thing to do. But the CEOs that have been committed to these initiatives understand that they actually benefit the bottom line. And we're talking about, three consumers, for example, who perceive a brand as being committed to diversity are 3.5 times more likely to purchase the brand's products or services compared to those who do not. McKinsey & Company issued a report a number of years ago finding that companies that are ethically and culturally diverse outperform their competitors by 36% in terms of profitability. So the CEOs that are focused on diversity initiatives understand that they benefit the bottom line. They are just preparing for potentially being attacked, but those CEOs are staying the course. They're recommitting to diversity and in some cases expanding those initiatives, not only with respect to supply diversity, but also how they engage in hiring, recruitment, and promotion. And the last thing I'll say to this is, many have been conflating what happened at the U.S. Supreme Court with respect to affirmative action and suggesting that the affirmative action decision meant that you could no longer hire diverse employees. You could no longer have diverse programs. You could no longer have diverse supply diversity programs, which is entirely false. The Supreme Court decision on affirmative action dealt with education and only education. It said nothing about employment. It said nothing about contracting. And some of the right-wing advocates are trying to conflate these concepts. And so it's important that we re-educate CEOs, senior executives, and some attorneys who may not be well-grounded in civil rights law to make sure they understand the distinction.
Alfonso, I want to play a clip for you, and this conversation is all over the place. Not the conversation you and I are having, but the conversation about DEI and the attacks that it receives. Mm-hmm. And so I want to play a clip for you and then get your thoughts on the other side. Let's hear it, Andy.
And that's why I think this United story and the DEI story hits so hard, because we've all been in the back of a plane when the turbulence hits, or when you're flying through a storm and you're like, I'm so glad I saw the guy with the right stuff and the square jaw get into the cockpit before we took off. And I feel better now thinking about that.
No, I mean, like, you want to go thought crime? Like, I'm sorry, if I see a black pilot, I'm going to be like, boy, I hope he's qualified.
Well, that's the you wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have. You wouldn't have done that before.
That's not an immediate.
No, you wouldn't have done that before.
That's not who I am. That's not what I believe.
It is the reality the left has created.
Okay, so a whole lot there, Alfonso. From that's not who I am to that's what the left has created. But obviously, the main thing there, not to bury the lead, is if I see a black pilot, I'm gonna wonder if he's qualified. There's so many ways that we can respond to that, and obviously it's infuriating, it's frustrating, but what would be your top line reaction when you hear something like that? And that's a clip that we played a couple weeks ago, and I just wanted to bring it back for this conversation because it's just I think you're the perfect person to kind of help teach people how to respond to malarkey like that.
I think the first thing when you hear something like that is to recognize how sad it is that people don't understand the facts and they don't understand how things function. Look, our education system is broken. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. And unfortunately, that clip just reflects that. But I think, more concretely, when someone is talking about Black and brown people being in positions that they question their qualifications, remember that in order for us to get to places that many could not get to in the past, we have to be overqualified in order to become a pilot or a doctor or a lawyer, because our systems are embedded with systemic bias. So unless you're going to ignore or deny our history, deny slavery, deny how these institutions were intentionally created to oppress people of color, then you will not be in the position to actually recognize how people of color have actually overcome these obstacles in order to succeed. You can look at any pilot or doctor or lawyer who is Black and recognize, just looking at their credentials, that in order for them not only to graduate, but to actually succeed, they have to be the best. Yes, you may be able to get a law degree, you may be able to get a medical degree, but you will not survive unless you are the best. And the reason why is because we have these systems. Systemic oppression is real, and they are embedded in so many of our institutions. And so in order for us to succeed, we often have to overcome those obstacles day after day after day, not after graduation, day after day, year after year.
Yeah, well said. And you said that we can get law degrees and we can get certifications and things. And that's in part because of affirmative action. And without affirmative action, there are qualified students who are being denied. And that's what I always say about when people say stupid things like we just heard that group of white men saying, that we do have to be overqualified, because even in cases where we're equally qualified, the job is going to the other person. The job is going to the person in baseball, they say tie goes to the runner. In diversity, tie goes to the white person. It's just like, if we're equally qualified, and that's what DEI does, it kind of eliminates that from happening as best it can. And when we come forward, Alfonso, I want to ask you, you said unless they want to deny our history and deny slavery, then they have to acknowledge that this is how things have been. But they do also do that. They do also deny our history. and so I want to ask you how we combat that. And I want to also ask you about, you talked about I guess the 3 R's, the reevaluate, retreat, and reaffirm, the kind of the 3 categories that businesses fall under. And I want to get your take on the retreat group and whether they were only, you said that they kind of never really were into DEI in the first place. I think a lot of them kind of took an opportunity during the George Floyd fallback after the murder of George Floyd, or fallout rather, not fallback, but they took advantage of the fallout from George Floyd to kind of make themselves seem more into diversity than they are. And so I want to ask you about that as well when we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's the real deal in real time. You're listening to Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
I tried to quit smoking cigarettes probably hundreds of times over the years. 2 or 3 days into quitting again, I go get into a vehicle and guess what? There's a pack of cigarettes in there. I mean, I've got the unlit cigarette in my hand. And I said to myself, why do I even try to quit if I'm going to cave so easily every time? Something clicked in my head that told me I can do this.
Every attempt is part of your story to quit for good. Visit Kick It California today at kickitca.org.
Tax Talk with Straight Talk.
You give and you give. This tax season, you get with Straight Talk Wireless. You get a reliable 5G network and unlimited data and a new Samsung Galaxy A15 for just $99. So you can give your janky phone to your kid. Yeah! Good talk.
Switch to Straight Talk for plans starting as low as $25 a line per month for 4 lines. Find us at Walmart and StraightTalk.com. For network management practices, visit StraightTalk.com. Device offer ends 4/14/24. In-store activation on single Silver Unlimited plan or higher required. Family plan discount with 4 lines all on the Silver Unlimited plan. Taxes and fees apply.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 believes in community empowerment through the arts. Tia Chucha Central Cultural is on a mission to transform community in the Northeast San Fernando Valley and beyond through ancestral knowledge, the arts, literacy, and creative engagement. The Northeast San Fernando Valley has a population of about 500,000, the size of the city of Oakland, yet it has no bookstores, art galleries, or full-fledged cultural spaces until Tia Chuchas opened its doors in 2001. Founded by renowned poet and activist Luis Rodriguez, Tia Chucha's Cultural Center provides a year-round free or low-cost arts and literacy bilingual intergenerational programming in mural painting, music, dance, writing, visual arts, healing art sessions, and healing talking circles. Activities also include Mexica, Aztec dance, indigenous cosmology, philosophy, and 2 weekly open mic nights, one in Spanish, the other in English. In addition, they host author readings, film screenings, and art exhibits. To express yourself, heal yourself, attend an event, or volunteer, please visit www.tiachucha.org. That's TIACHUCHA.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
There's no time like the present. Let's get back to more of Areva Martin in real time on KBLA Talk 1580.
And we're back with Alfonso David, President and CEO of Global Black Economic Forum. All right, Alfonso, having a great conversation. Really appreciate you being here for this. It's really fascinating to talk about this stuff because you see things like former Harvard President Claudine Gay being removed, and we've talked about that a lot on the show. And so that's just part of that kind of mass anti-DEI movement right now. And you talked about the 3 R's, and as soon as you said reevaluate and then you said retreat, okay, I said the next thing's going to be also a something and probably reaffirm, because I'm also a fan of alliteration, but it also helps people remember stuff. But the retreat group, you talked about some organizations being in the retreat category. In other words, when they get these threats or when people tell them to stop being so diverse, they say, "Okay, you got it. Our bad." Are they like that because they? I guess rather, did they get involved in DEI in the first place because maybe they saw a moment in which it was really popular and they thought they could make their company look better by doing so, like the moment after George Floyd was murdered? Do you think that's the case with those retreat organizations, or is it something else?
Look, it could be a variety of reasons why companies are retreating, but if we talk about in the first instance, why do companies in some cases commit to D&I if they didn't believe in it, right? You could say, well, they thought it was a good thing to do. They thought they could advertise and say that they were supportive of diversity initiatives. They could put forward some of their Black and brown employees and women and say that they have a diverse workforce and then use that to appeal to customers. And they saw some benefit in that. And now, when they are being threatened, they don't see as much of a value, right? Because it's a cost-benefit analysis for some folks. And in some instances, they don't actually appreciate or know about the data that shows that companies that embrace diversity are actually much more successful than those who do not. So I think is a multitude of factors that inform why and whether companies retreat from D&I initiatives. One, they never really believed in it. Two, they're afraid of the risk. Three, they miscalculated how they could or whether they could get involved in really supporting D&I at the grassroots level. So, it would be difficult to come up with one answer for all of these companies because they're all different. The reasons why they adopted D&I are all different. But I think at its core, the companies who are retreating never really had a true commitment to D&I. Because if you had a commitment to D&I, you understand two fundamental factors. One, it benefits the bottom line. It helps you grow. It makes you a better company. It makes you succeed more so than if you did not embrace D&I. And two, it is entirely legal to have D&I programs within your workforce and within your supply diversity programs. You have to do it in a way that does not sort of bridge the gap, if you will, as it relates to some legal principles, but companies have been doing it for decades. And so I think those are the two principles to be mindful of. One, it benefits business and is entirely legal. And if companies actually understood and drove D&I with those two fundamental principles, they would not be retreating. But those who are retreating either don't understand those principles and or never really committed to diversity in the first place.
So with that's a really important point, that it's legal to implement DEI programs and to have a diverse workforce. So with that in mind, why do you think these anti-diversity lawsuits have been so successful in gaining attention in the headlines?
Well, I think and this is not a criticism of the press, but I think we know that in many cases, conflict drives press attention. So when these right-wing advocates are filing lawsuits and issuing letters and threatening businesses, there's a conflict, right? And as a result of that conflict, you see newspaper articles about that conflict. But at its core, why are right-wing advocates actually threatening the concept of D&I? We should understand that this is not about D&I. This is about stripping every single federal law and federal regulation of race-conscious provisions. What they're looking to do is to essentially say we live in a race-neutral world, that race should never be a factor. Race should not be a factor when we are evaluating business decisions, education-related decisions after affirmative action. They are looking to strip race-conscious decision-making from every facet of our lives. That is the goal. That is their goal, because they believe we live in a race-neutral world. Now, I would say I would love to live in a race-neutral world, but the reality is we do not. The reality is, and we know this, Black people are treated differently in so many different facets of life. It is not just Black people. It's brown people, it's women, people with disabilities, LGBTQ people. Marginalized communities generally are treated differently in so many different facets of life. That's why we needed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Before the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, you could be fired from your job because you were black. Before Brown versus Board of Education, we had separate but equal. We were going to different schools. So those laws, those statutes, those regulations that have been put in place were put in place for a reason. And they were put in place in order to break down systemic oppression that had been embedded in our institutions for such a long time. They're supposed to be a tool to prevent companies, to prevent institutions from discriminating against people based on the color of their skin. And that's what we're fighting for. And that's what they want to strip us of.
Alfonso, there's so much more I want to ask you, but we're just about out of time. Before we go, just want to ask how we can keep in touch with you and the work that you and the other 11 CEOs who signed this letter to the Fortune 500 CEOs, how we can keep up with you and the work you're doing.
So we are on every single social channel known to man. So I would say that you could do a few things. One, go to our website, which is www.gbef.com, which stands for Global Black Economic Forum.com. We're on Instagram, on Twitter, or X as it's called now, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Just go to the Global Black Economic Forum, and you will be able to keep up with us and get information about what we're doing and get involved. I should also say we are a sister company to Essence. And so we will be at the Essence Festival of Culture in July of this year. It's the 30th anniversary of the festival. We encourage people to come out. We will have programs, activations on the future of work, the future of wealth, and the future of health. And we encourage folks to come out. This is a major election year. We need to make sure that we're protecting the gains that we have obtained for the past few decades. So it was important that people are informed and educated about what is at risk if we don't engage in the electoral process. So a lot coming up. Keep up with us on our website, on our social channels, and we would love to keep in touch with all of you.
gbef.com. Alfonso, David, thank you so much. And whenever someone mentions X, formerly Twitter, I always make it a point to say that X is a stupid name. But thank you so much, Alfonso. Really appreciate you, and have a great weekend.
You too. Thanks for having me.
It was a great pleasure. So when we come forward, Robin Ayers is going to bring you all the latest in entertainment with the Raw Report. Have a great weekend. I'm Avi Bernard, and I am gone.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Former President Trump is being ordered to pay more than $350 million in a civil fraud case in New York. He is also being banned from doing business in New York for 3 years. The NBA All-Star Weekend is getting underway in Indianapolis, Indiana. The events kick off tonight with the Rising Stars Challenge and Celebrity Game. The festivities continue on Saturday with a three-point contest, slam dunk contest, skills challenge, and NBA HBCU Classic game. This year will also feature a three-point contest between